All right, time to dive into this library assistant interview prep. So you're stepping into this world of like hushed whispers and the smell of old books, that kind of quiet thrill of connecting people with knowledge. We've got a few things to help you prepare. We've got your career guide. We've got the interview guide, which has like real questions you might get asked, and then some info about RoleCatcher's AI.
Mhm.
So are you ready to ditch those pre-interview jitters and get excited and confident?
Absolutely. And it's amazing, how much being a library assistant has changed. It's so much more than just checking out books these days.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The career guide kind of paints this picture of a library assistant who's not just like guarding the books, but they're also a tech navigator, they're a community builder. They might even be a leader, like as a senior library assistant.
Exactly. That means when you're interviewing, you need to show more than just loving books. You have to think about your experiences, like that show you're good with customer service, tech skills, and even leadership skills.
That's such a good point. So let's get into the interview guide. It's got tons of real questions you might actually get asked. Don't worry, we're going to break down how to answer them and what kind of tricky follow-up questions they might ask. Ready to practice?
Absolutely. Let's start with a classic like, tell us about your experience working in a library. This seems simple, but it's not just about listing your past jobs. They want to see, how much experience you have and if you actually enjoy working in libraries.
So even if you've only volunteered, don't just say, like, I put books back on the shelves.
Nah.
You need to think about what you learned. Like, did you get really good at the Dewey Decimal System? Or maybe you helped people find that one specific book they were looking for. Maybe you ran a book club or helped out with a kids program.
Right. Point out anything that shows off your organizational skills, how much you love the library and how good you are at connecting with people.
Now, what if they ask you, what was the hardest part of that experience?
That's where you get to show them your problem-solving skills and how tough you are. Think about a time when things were difficult, how you got through it, and what you learned from it.
So maybe, like, a ton of people suddenly showed up when it was already busy. Or maybe a book disappeared and you had to track it down.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about the problem itself. It's about what you did about it. Did you stay calm and try to find a solution? Did you ask other people for help?
Okay, let's try a tough one. How do you handle difficult patrons? We've all met them.
Oh, yeah. Libraries are for everyone, so this question is all about how you handle conflict. The person interviewing you wants to know you can calm things down while being professional and respectful.
So instead of just saying, like, I'm patient, tell a story, maybe you had to, like, calm down someone who couldn't find the book they wanted or help someone who was having trouble with a computer.
Exactly. Explain what happened, what you did, and how it turned out okay.
Okay, and what if they follow up with, have you ever had to, call security or management?
That's where you show them you can make good decisions and know when to get help while still trying to be helpful. If you've never had to call security, you can tell them how you'd figure out how serious the situation is and when you'd need to get more help.
This is where RoleCatcher could be really helpful. Imagine being able to practice these scenarios and get feedback from the AI. It could help you get your answers just right and feel more confident going into that interview room.
Totally. RoleCatcher's AI can look at your answers, see if there are any red flags, and even give you suggestions on how to make them better. It's like having a coach, but like virtual for your interview.
Love it. Okay, next important question. How do you stay organized in a busy library environment? Think about all those books and people and all the stuff you have to do.
Oh, yeah. This one is all about showing off your organizational superpowers.
Huh.
It's not enough to just say you're organized. You have to show them how you do it. Do you use to-do lists? Do you organize tasks by when they're due? Or do you have a system for, like, managing all your work?
Right. So if you're like me and love using those color-coded sticky notes, own it. Explain how you use them and how they help you stay on top of things.
Yeah, and be ready for follow-up questions like, what do you do if your priorities suddenly change? Or, how do you make sure everything gets done on time and the way it's supposed to be done?
That's where you show them you can adapt and be flexible.
Exactly. Highlighting any experience you have with, software they use at the library can also help. It shows you're comfortable with technology and ready to get started.
Okay, let's move on to a question that gives you a chance to shine. Can you tell us about a time when you went above and beyond for a patron? This is where you show off how dedicated you are to customer service and how much you love helping people.
Yes. Remember, they want to see that you take initiative, you solve problems, and you have empathy. Did you ever, find a really rare book for someone, help them with research, or just listen to them when they needed someone to talk to?
Here's where a good story can make you stand out. Set the scene. Describe the problem, explain what you did, and emphasize how it made things better.
Imagine telling a story about, like, helping a student find resources for a really tough research paper, going, like, above and beyond what the library normally does. It shows you're resourceful and really want to help people succeed.
Love it. Okay, and be prepared for follow-up questions like, what was the best part of that experience? Or, what did you learn from going above and beyond?
Those are great questions to think about. It's all about showing them that you're not just doing your job, you really care about making a positive impact.
Okay, let's tackle a question that tells them a lot about how you work. How do you stay up to date on trends and changes in the library field?
Ooh, good one. This question shows how dedicated you are to learning new things. Libraries are always changing, so they want to see that you're excited to keep learning and grow with the field.
So it's not enough to say you just like reading. You have to show them how you stay in the loop. Do you attend webinars, read those professional journals, follow library, blogs, or podcasts, or are you part of any online communities?
Exactly. Be specific and show them you're proactive about learning. Mentioning, like, a favorite resource, like a specific blog or podcast, can help you stand out.
Great tip. And be ready for those follow-up questions like, what's a recent library trend that you found interesting? Or how would you apply that trend at this library?
Right. Those follow-ups let you show you've done your research on their library and are ready to contribute to what makes them unique.
Okay, let's talk about confidentiality. They might ask, how do you handle confidential information? This is so important because, people share sensitive stuff for the library.
Yes, libraries are places people trust, so this question is all about showing that you understand privacy and how to protect data.
So really emphasize that you know and will follow all libraries' policies and procedures about keeping things confidential.
Absolutely. And if you know anything about data protection rules like GDPR or HIPAA, mentioning them can show you're aware of the laws.
Good point. Now, don't forget those sneaky follow-up questions like, what would you do if you accidentally saw confidential information? Or how would you handle someone asking for information you're not allowed to give them?
These questions test if you can make good decisions and handle tricky situations professionally and ethically.
Okay, back to that busy library environment. Be ready for it. How do you handle competing priorities in a busy library environment?
Right. This is about showing you can juggle different tasks, prioritize what's important, and stay calm when things are crazy.
It's like the library version of a juggling act. So how do you show off those multitasking skills?
It's not enough to just say, I can multitask. You have to explain how you do it. Like, do you have a to-do list, a special way of scheduling your time, or maybe you use a method like the Eisenhower matrix?
Yeah. Explaining your system, even if it's simple, shows you've thought about this and have a plan to stay organized in all the craziness.
Exactly. And a real-life example of how you successfully managed a super busy day or met a bunch of deadlines at the library can really make your answer strong.
Makes sense. And be ready for those follow-ups like, what happens if your priorities suddenly change? Or how do you make sure everything gets done on time and meets the standards?
That's when you show them how flexible you are and how you can adapt to changes, which are super important skills in a library where things are always happening.
Speaking of things always happening, be ready for, can you tell us about a time when you had to troubleshoot a technical issue for a patron? Libraries are full of tech these days.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is all about showing how good you are at solving problems and explaining tech stuff clearly and simply.
It's important to emphasize your patience and empathy, especially when you're helping people who might not be so good with technology.
Exactly. Think about a specific time you helped someone fix a tech issue. Describe what was wrong, how you figured it out, and how you fixed it. Did you have to, like, restart a computer, fix a paper jam in the printer, or help someone use an online database? These details make your answer more interesting.
Right. And be ready for follow-up questions like, what are your go-to resources for solving technical problems? Or, what steps do you take when you encounter a problem you can't solve on your own?
Those questions show how resourceful you are and if you're willing to ask for help when you need it, which are important qualities in a collaborative environment like a library.
Okay, let's talk about working with different age groups. Libraries are for everyone, from little kids to senior citizens. They might ask, can you describe your experience working with different age groups?
It's all about showing that you can change your approach and make everyone feel welcome no matter their age.
Think about specific examples where you've connected with different age groups. Have you ever volunteered for a kid's story time, helped seniors learn how to use computers, or helped teenagers find that perfect book?
Exactly. These stories show you're versatile and know how to talk to different people in the right way.
Awesome. And be prepared for follow-up questions like, What would you do if a child is being disruptive in the library? Or how would you help a senior citizen who's not familiar with using the computer?
These questions make you think on your feet and show how you'd handle tricky situations with kindness and understanding.
So important.
Definitely. Welcome back. So we're continuing our deep dive into getting you ready for your library assistant interview. We've talked about some common questions, but there's, more to explore. Let's kind of switch gears a little and see what the career guide says about, the different stages in a library assistant's career. It's kind of like a sneak peek into your future.
Ooh, like a career crystal ball, huh? I'm intrigued. What does it say?
Well, it shows a clear path from starting as a library assistant to becoming a senior library assistant, and then maybe even an assistant librarian, and then finally a full-fledged librarian.
Hmm.
It's not just a job, it's a whole career path where you can grow and learn new skills within the library world.
I like that. So it's not just a stepping stone. It's like a whole journey. What kind of tasks and responsibilities can you expect at each level?
At the entry level, you'll be doing a lot of frontline work, helping patrons, checking out books, putting books back on the shelves, and helping with those basic library programs. It's all about mastering the basics and giving excellent customer service.
Okay, so very hands-on and focused on the people who come to the library. What about when you move up to a senior library assistant position? What changes then?
As a senior library assistant, you'll take on more leadership stuff. You might supervise and train new staff, help choose which books the library gets, answer tougher reference questions, and even organize events.
Wow, that's a big step up. It seems like a great way to learn leadership and organizational skills. And if you go for your master's in library science, you could even become an assistant librarian, right?
Right. Assistant librarians are really involved in choosing what books the library has, helping people with deep research, and working with other staff on special projects. It's a more strategic and research-focused role.
That sounds perfect for someone who loves to dig deep into information and help others find what they're looking for. But what about that top spot, the librarian role? What's that like?
Being a librarian means even more responsibility. They create the rules and procedures for the library, lead all the staff, manage the budget, and keep up with the latest trends in the field.
Impressive. That's definitely a challenging but rewarding career path. But let's get back to the interview for now. We talked about digital literacy earlier. The career guide says it's a super important skill for library professionals. Why is that?
Good point. Libraries aren't just about physical books anymore, are they? They're like gateways to these online databases, ebooks, digital archives, a whole world of online information.
Yeah, it's like there's a whole virtual library inside the actual library. So what does it mean to be digitally literate when you work at a library?
It means being able to find, evaluate, and use digital information effectively. This could be anything from searching online databases to understanding copyright laws to helping patrons when they have those inevitable tech issues.
It's not just knowing how to use a computer. It's knowing how the digital world works and being able to empower other people to do the same. So how can someone show off those skills in an interview?
Think about times when you've helped someone else in the digital world. Have you ever helped someone set up an email, navigate a website, or fix a computer problem? Those are all examples of digital literacy.
Those are great examples. It's really about showing you're comfortable in the digital world and can help other people navigate it too. Now, I want to hear more about how RoleCatcher can help someone prep for a library assistant interview. Can you give me some concrete examples?
Absolutely. Let's say the job you want requires experience with a specific kind of library software, like an integrated library system, or ILS. RoleCatcher's AI can look at the job description, see that keyword ILS, and then tell you to add relevant experience to your resume. It might even suggest certain phrases or bullet points to emphasize your expertise.
Well, it's like having a personal resume assistant who understands library stuff.
Exactly. And when it's time to practice for the interview, RoleCatcher is so helpful. Let's imagine you're practicing for that question about dealing with difficult patrons. RoleCatcher has a bunch of sample answers specifically for library assistants, each with a different approach and focus. You can read them, get ideas, and then make your own answer.
That's like having a bunch of library professionals giving you feedback and helping you perfect your answers and build that confidence. And what about that AI feedback on video rehearsals? How does that work?
It's really smart. It looks at your facial expressions, your body language, your tone of voice, and even what you say. It might tell you to smile more, make more eye contact, slow down, or give more detailed examples. It can even point out nervous habits or filler words you might not even know you're using.
That's amazing. Like having a virtual interview coach. I totally see how RoleCatcher could be a game changer for someone prepping for a library assistant interview.
Absolutely. It's such a valuable tool to build confidence and show your best self to potential employers. And speaking of showing your best self, let's go back to some specific questions from the interview guide. One that comes up often is, how do you stay organized in a busy library environment?
We touched on that one before. I'm curious to hear more about the finer points of answering it. What are interviewers really looking for with this question?
They want to see if you can handle multitasking in a busy library. Library assistants juggle a lot, helping patrons, shelving books, managing programs, answering phones. It's like a constant dance of staying organized and getting things done.
Sounds like it. So it's not enough to just say, oh, I'm organized, right?
Nope, not at all. You need to give concrete examples of how you stay organized and how those strategies work in a library setting. If you use a to-do list, tell them how you prioritize tasks, delegate, or break big projects down into smaller steps.
So it's about showing them your system, even if it's simple, and explaining how it helps you keep everything in order when it's busy.
Exactly. You could even talk about specific tools or techniques like project management software or a time blocking system. And don't forget to give a real-life example of a time you successfully managed a hectic day or juggled lots of deadlines at the library.
Right. Show them you've got a plan to conquer that chaos. I bet they also ask follow-up questions to see how your process works.
Oh, definitely. They might ask things like, what's your system for tracking overdue books? Or how do you deal with lots of patrons needing help at the same time? You need to be ready to explain your methods and give real examples of how you use your organizational skills. It's not just about saying you're organized, it's about showing them what that looks like in a library.
Okay, what's another question they should be ready for?
Can you tell us about a time when you went above and beyond for a patron? Is always a good one to have an answer for.
I love this one. It's your chance to show how passionate you are about helping people and how dedicated you are to awesome customer service.
Exactly. Libraries are all about serving the community, and interviewers want to know that you'll go the extra mile to help people.
How should they approach this question? What makes a great above and beyond story?
The trick is to pick a specific story that shows you take initiative, solve problems, and have empathy. Maybe you tracked down a rare book for a researcher, helped a student with a tough assignment, or just listened to someone who was having a rough day.
I like those examples. It's about showing that you really care about the people who use the library and that you're willing to do more than just your basic job to make their experience positive and meaningful.
Absolutely. And when you're telling the story, focus on setting the scene, describing what the problem was, what you did to fix it, and what positive impact you had. Don't be afraid to let your passion come through.
Details matter. The more specific and interesting your story is, the more likely the interviewer is to remember you. What kind of follow-up questions might they ask?
Oh, they might ask things like, what was the most rewarding part of that experience? Or what did you learn from going above and beyond in that situation? These questions give you a chance to reflect on what you did and show that you're committed to growing, both personally and professionally.
Okay, let's move to another question that often trips people up.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with trends and changes in the library field? This one's all about showing that you're dedicated to learning and growing.
You got it. Libraries are constantly changing, so they want to see that you're excited to learn and keep up with the profession.
So it's not enough to just say, I love books. You need to prove you're involved and know what's happening in the library world.
Right. Think about how you stay informed. Do you attend webinars or conferences? Do you read those professional journals? Do you follow library blogs or podcasts or participate in online communities? Be specific and show them you're actively learning.
Maybe even mention a specific blog or podcast that you really like.
Good idea. And be prepared for those follow-up questions. What's a recent library trend that you thought was really interesting? Or how would you use that trend at this library?
Those let you tie your knowledge to their specific library and show you've done your research and are thinking about how you can fit in.
Exactly. It's about showing them that you're not just after any library job, you're interested in their library in particular.
Okay, let's talk about confidentiality. I'm sure they'll ask something like, how do you handle confidential information? That's huge in libraries, where people share sensitive personal stuff.
Totally agree. Libraries need to be trusted spaces, and interviewers need to know you understand the importance of privacy and data protection.
So how should people answer this question? What's the best way to show you're serious about confidentiality?
First, emphasize that you know and understand the library's policies and procedures about confidentiality. Be clear that you're committed to following the rules and protecting people's privacy.
Mentioning any experience you have with data protection rules,
Huh.
like GDPR or IPO, would be good too, if those apply to what the library does.
Oh, for sure. And don't forget to prepare for those follow-up questions. They might ask, what would you do if you accidentally saw confidential information? Or how would you handle someone asking for information you're not allowed to give them? Huh. These questions are checking if you can make good decisions and handle delicate situations in a responsible and ethical way.
Those are good situations to think about. It's about showing them you have the integrity and know how to handle sensitive information carefully.
Absolutely. It's not just about knowing the rules, it's about showing that you understand why they exist and how to use them in real-life situations.
Now, I want to circle back to RoleCatcher and those cool AI features. We've talked about how it can help with resumes and interview practice, but tell me more about the Career Compass feature. What's that all about?
Oh, the Career Compass is such a great tool for figuring out your career path and discovering new possibilities. It helps you figure out your skills, what you like to do, and what's important to you, and then it recommends career paths that match your profile.
So it's like a personal career exploration tool that helps you connect who you are with what you want to do for work.
Precisely. The Career Compass can be especially helpful if you're just starting your career or thinking about a career change.
That makes sense. It can be a little scary trying to figure out all the career options out there.
Oh.
Having a tool like that can really help narrow things down and give you some direction.
Definitely. It can help you focus your choices, find careers you might not have thought about before, and even suggest specific steps to achieve your goals.
This is amazing. It sounds like RoleCatcher is a must-have if you're serious about your career, whether you're getting ready for a library assistant interview or thinking about other careers.
I totally agree. It's an awesome tool for anyone looking for a job, changing careers, or just wanting to take charge of their professional life.
Okay, let's go back to the interview guide. There are still a few more questions we should cover before you walk into that interview feeling confident and ready.
You bet. Let's tackle those tough questions and give you the knowledge and strategies you need to succeed.
All right, welcome back to the last part of our deep dive on acing that library assistant interview. We've covered everything, specific questions, career paths, using AI like RoleCatcher. Now it's time for, the final touches, those things that make a really great impression.
Right, we've prepped you on what to expect, but now let's talk about you. How do you really show them you're passionate about libraries and make sure they remember you?
Yes, that's it. It's not just about answering right. It's about standing out and making them see you're perfect for their team.
The interview guide really pushes researching the library before you go. Like, look into what special collections they have, what programs they offer, what their mission statement is, all that.
It's like showing them you've done your homework and you care about their library specifically, not just any library job. That's got to make a difference.
Oh, it does, for sure. Bringing up those details shows you're thoughtful and that you take the initiative.
Plus, it could get a good conversation going. You might find out you and the interviewer have something in common, or you might learn about a program you'd love to be part of.
Speaking of conversations, remember that an interview goes both ways. Don't be afraid to ask them good questions, too. It shows you're paying attention and interested.
Okay, this is where I always struggled. Like, what kind of questions should you ask? I never wanted to look unprepared or uninterested, but I also didn't want to ask something they already talked about.
The best questions are those that show you really care about the job and the library. You could ask about things like professional development opportunities, what their plans for the future are, or even some challenges they're facing right now.
Asking about challenges makes you look like you're not afraid to work hard, right? Like you're ready to jump in and help.
Absolutely. It shows you're a problem solver, not just someone looking for a paycheck. You want to make a difference.
Thinking back on your own career, what was the most rewarding part of working in libraries?
Ah, that's a good question. For me, it's always been connecting people with the information they need, seeing that moment when they find exactly what they were looking for, like helping a student with a tough research project or showing a senior citizen how to use online resources. Those moments are so rewarding.
I love that. It's like you're opening up a whole new world for them. Speaking of connections, let's go back to RoleCatcher for a sec, specifically the networking feature. How can that help someone who wants to be a library assistant? Networking can be kind of scary, especially when you're just starting out.
Oh, I agree. Networking can be intimidating, but it's so important in any job, especially libraries where relationships matter so much. RoleCatcher's networking tool helps you organize your contacts, link them to job applications, and track your interactions.
So it's like a personal CRM for your career, keeping you organized and helping you remember who you've talked to and what they might be able to offer.
Exactly. And here's a bonus tip. Use it to connect with other library professionals even when you're not applying for jobs.
That's such a good idea. Building those relationships over time is super valuable. You never know what doors might open or what advice you'll get from people who've been there.
Totally. It's all about building community and expanding your network in the library world.
All right, let's get practical for a minute and talk about the interview itself, the logistics.
Hmm.
First impressions are everything. So, like, what about clothes? Is it suit and tie formal for a library assistant interview or more business casual? I always stress about that.
It's always better to be a little more dressed up than not enough. You want to look neat, tidy, and put together. A full suit might be too much, but a nice shirt or blouse, dress pants, or a skirt, maybe a blazer would be good.
And comfy shoes. You might end up giving them a tour of the library.
Right. You want to look and feel confident and professional, and comfortable shoes are part of that.
What about jewelry and stuff? Should you leave the, like, fandom stuff at home? I have this cool book-themed necklace, but I'm not sure it's the right vibe.
Yeah, usually it's best to keep it simple. A small necklace or a classic watch are fine, but don't wear anything that could be distracting or, controversial. You want them to focus on your skills, not your bling.
Makes sense. No book necklace this time. What about being on time? Obviously, that's important, but I've heard you should get to library interviews even earlier than usual. Why is that?
Well, libraries are usually in busy areas, and parking can be a pain. Getting there 10 or 15 minutes early gives you time to find parking, take a minute to collect yourself and get familiar with the place.
It also shows them that you respect their time and that you're serious about the interview.
Exactly. Use that extra time to look over your notes, practice your answers one last time, and take a few deep breaths to calm those nerves.
Okay, appearance, punctuality. What else about the interview itself? Like, what about body language? I fidget when I get nervous.
Oh, yeah. Body language is so important. Make eye contact, sit up straight, and try not to fidget. It shows confidence and that you're engaged in the conversation.
It's like you're having a whole other conversation without saying a word.
Exactly. When you answer questions, be clear and concise and let your enthusiasm show.
Enthusiasm is contagious, and it lets them see how much you want the job.
Definitely. And it's okay to pause for a second before you answer. It's better to take a moment to think than to rush and say something you haven't really considered.
That's true. It shows you're thoughtful, not just trying to say whatever pops into your head.
Right. And if you don't understand a question, it's okay to ask them to explain it. It shows you're really listening and want to give a good answer.
Great point. Okay, last but not least, how do you recommend ending the interview? What's the best way to leave a good impression?
Always thank them for their time and tell them again that you're really excited about the opportunity. Remind them of your key strengths and why you're the right person for the job.
What about a thank you note? Is that still a thing? Some people think it's old-fashioned, but I've always thought it was a nice touch.
A good thank you note can be very effective. It shows you're still interested, gives you a chance to clear up anything you might have missed, and helps them remember you while they're making their decision.
So it helps you stand out and shows that you're really serious about the job. What's the best way to send it? Email or a handwritten card?
Either way is fine, but email is usually faster, and make sure they get it right away. Keep it short and professional, thank them again, mention something specific from the interview, and say again that you're excited about the job.
That's awesome advice. I think we've covered everything you need to know to rock that library assistant interview. We talked about the role, how to answer tough questions, and how to make a great impression. You ready?
Definitely. Remember, libraries are so important to their communities, and you can make a real difference in people's lives. Go out there, show them your passion, your skills, and how much you care about serving your community. We're cheering for you.
That's it for our deep dive into library assistant interviews. We hope you learned a lot and are feeling confident. Good luck with your interview. We know you'll be amazing.